Well, hello there. This is Virtuoso Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. This is game 2. So I've got the black pieces this time against my opponent. From the last video, I'm playing for Team Sydney and they're playing for Team Melbourne. Well, let's go take a look. Now, in the first game, I ended up with a very, very nice game of the Vienna Gambit, transposed from the Nimzowitsch Defense. In this game, my opponent with the white pieces also plays a hypermodern-ish opening, which is the English opening C4. Now against C4, I have no special approach. I very rarely see it. I had a quick look at opening tree before I made this video. I see it under 3% of the time and I still do okay. I win a little bit over 50% of games. And what I do is I just play according to opening principles. Take the full center if you can. So E5, obviously you can't immediately really play a D5 without it being very, very spicy. They develop the knight, makes sense. I develop my king's knight. Okay. Interesting, they play E4, which probably isn't the most typical way of playing an English opening. More usual would be G3, knight to F3, or D3. You know, the idea of hypermodern-ish type openings, hypermodern type openings, is that you try to undermine the center, control the center from the flank with your pieces, rather than commit a central pawn. Now here, bishop. So basically getting ready for a potential attack on white's weak f2 pawn, and also getting ready potentially to castle very quickly, especially with white having committed to some queen side development. All right, they develop the other knight, and I develop my knight as well. So try to control the center with pawns if you can, develop your pieces, knights before bishops generally, and so not uncommonly you would end up with a 4 knights type approach. And very interestingly, when I sort of looked at this with computer analysis later, this is known as the English opening 4 knights, the Nimzowitsch variation. So once again, we've got another Nimzowitsch, and here I think white knew the opening, definitely knew the betting over than me. So they took with the knight. And here I was thinking, if I take back, they're going to have a very, very nice fork with D4. And so I decided here, better not take this way. I wasn't sure what was the right way to play, so I decided to play D6. And D6 is a mistake. And white is quite a bit ahead here, a little bit better than +2. And the sort of deceptive thing in this position is that knight captures knight, allowing that that fork is actually the best move. And what you do is bishop pinning that knight. They of course will take the knight, and now we capture back with the knight, and with that knight pinned to the king, 2 attackers. Basically, we've got enough compensation with the initiative. There's material equality, and white is only very slightly better here, +0.2. So this is actually the most accurate line. Now, didn't see that, didn't know that in the game as it was played. To me, that looked like that was going to be a mistake, which is why I played D6. But D6 is the mistake here, because after captures, now they've got the D4. I moved my bishop out of the way, so still with the pin. And here I thought I must have made a mistake somewhere in the game, because not only have I basically lost a pawn with sort of no good way of getting it back at the moment, white also has this very powerful center of pawns. You know, they've got E4, D4, and C4. That has to be good. At this point, I did see that maybe the way to get this back, so this knight is pinned, that means it's not defending their E4 pawns. I can capture with that double attack. At this point, I did see it, and that was the idea originally of sort of capturing back anyway. Here, white needs to defend their e-pawn. So obviously that's not really defending because it's pinned. They can do that a number of ways. Best is probably developing their bishop to d3 so that, they're ready to castle short as well. But I think queen to that position or pawn to that position, so any of those moves are potentially fine. However, in this game, black played something that's very normal in these sort of positions, which was to play bishop to d2 to unpin their knight. However, it doesn't work because now I've got captures, they capture back, knight captures, I'll win back my pawn. Also with that attack on the bishop, things are looking very good, and you can see almost back to equality. So somehow I managed to wriggle out of that opening mistake, and we're sort of back mostly to equality. All right, bishop here with an attack on the knight. So here I decided to play the queen. That wasn't the most accurate move. So according to Stockfish, and I sort of recognize this afterwards, the best way to play here is to immediately simplify, trade my knight for a bishop, get rid of their bishop pair, and then just play simply. The problem with this is after short castles, I didn't recognize just how potentially powerful that pin on my knight could be. I thought that after short castling here, I'll be okay. However, that's not the case because white can eventually attack the knight with a pawn. So they play the rook to e1, pinning my knight to the queen. Stockfish calls this a mistake because apparently queen to e2 is a lot stronger. However, here I thought, okay, let's defend. But now, there we go, f3 with an attack, putting pressure on the pinned piece. Now, you will see that Stockfish calls it an inaccuracy, suggesting queen to the edge of the board, queen a4 with an attack on my sort of weak c6 pawn to be best. But why is that? That looks like it's pinned. Surely that just wins a knight. Now, the thing with heuristics and principles like, place pressure on the pinned piece is that there are always exceptions. And here I actually have an exception that allows me to unpin that knight. And that is, I can immediately just capture that bishop, and I saw this in the game. I capture the bishop, that comes with a chain attack on the opponent's queen. So here, if they wanted to capture my queen, they have to be willing to trade queens. That actually is their best move, but in this game, white did not want to lose their queen, so they captured this way, and now I can move my queen out of the way. That's the best move, and again, pretty much very, very close to equality. And I somehow, again, wriggled out of that, that position where I should have lost a knight. We still have material equality, and we still almost have evaluation equality. So very, very happy. They take back. They sort of advance that rook. That's good. However, I can just defend this way. Potentially, they're trying to make that attack. And here I thought, look, I'll just block that diagonal with g6. Stockfish thinks actually h6 might be better because, they could give a check. King moves here, and basically they've got nothing. But this is almost just as good. Again, very close to equality. And in this position, I'm feeling that I'm doing quite well. And more than that, after I've made those two errors, I knew there were errors in the game. In this part of the middle game, I decided that I really needed to pay attention to the game and think things through, stop making silly errors. So no more just rushing out a move while I'm on the move on my phone. This is in the daily game format. Often I end up playing moves on my phone when I get a notification. That typically leads to some underthought, undercalculated bad moves. Now, this is a difficult position for white to play. So they push forward their pawn, their c pawn. That's fine, I think. Here we go with the bishop, all sort of nice and defended. This rook doesn't really have anywhere it can go. So I thought this is looking very, very good for me. And you can see in this position, the best move for white is probably to form a battery with their 2 rooks. Potentially rook to f1, queen to f2 is good as well. They're somewhat more obscure moves, potentially supporting this pawn to push forward. There we go. So that was the bishop. They push their c pawn again, closing off the center. I thought this was probably better for me than for them. Look, all my pawns are on, pretty much all my pawns are on light squares, which really sort of blocks the light square bishop potentially. And now I gain control of the fully open B file. They try to form a tension of the center, but this is not so good. And the problem here for white, and here I actually did start seeing some very, very good tactics, is that their king is very exposed potentially to a check along the back rank. And the other thing is that their king has some fairly weak dark squares, and with their queen and the bishop being on light squares at the moment, and this is a light square bishop, so it can never defend the dark squares, this is potentially quite weak. That potentially if I could ever get my queen here, that comes with a check. While my king is really quite well defended at the moment. So I was seeing dark squares and also the back rank. I need to see where I can make attacks along using those resources. All right, so queen, firstly here, potentially, with, here obviously nothing there quite yet, but there is an attack on the D pawn. Now, white decides to move their queen to a4, defending the d4 square. However, this move meant that they've removed one defender from the back rank. So let's trade a pair of rooks. Captures, and here king is almost checkmated. They have to take with the bishop. Takes. Here, still got that look here, and if I can ever take that, bishop, that comes with a fork. Very, very nice. So that's what I'm thinking. Now in this position, I decided to play queen to f4, and it's a mistake. And it's a mistake because I needed to play the rook first, the rook to the b file first, though I didn't see that in the game. My logic with my queen to this square is that I've got a fork that chains to more forks, to 2 absolute forks. What am I talking about? Potentially, that is one attack, and that's an absolute fork of that pawn and that rook. But the other fork is queen to c1 with check, which comes with a fork of that bishop, which is at the moment undefended. Now, the reason why rook here is best is that white can refute this attack by making sure that their queen defends both the bishop and the pawn simultaneously. And the best way to do that is queen to b4. Defend, and so this doesn't really work because they can move the queen and they cannot capture because it's covered. So to avoid white's queen from accessing b4, I really needed to move the rook to the b file first. Now, lucky for me, white saw that they had to defend the bishop at the pawn, but they did it in the wrong way, the wrong implementation. They played queen to d1. And as you will see, this doesn't quite work, even though it defends these 2 pieces, because I still have the rook to b8, and let's see what happens. Here, they decide to try to kick my queen with g3. It's a blunder. It's a blunder because I now have the brilliant move, rook captures the bishop, and it's a rook sacrifice. Why? Let's say they decide to take my queen anyway. Remember, this is pinned. If they take, I capture with check. King probably has a move here or here. Let's say they move here. and I take back, chains another attack, and we enter an endgame where I have 2 pieces and a pawn majority, completely winning. Now, in the actual game, they decided to take my rook, so queen captures rook. There we go. However, the queen cannot defend against both squares simultaneously. And if you remember, I had a fork that led to more forks. Queen captures the d4 pawn, absolute fork, king and rook. And here, white opted to resign, emotional damage, because the next move, I'll be taking the rook, and we have the same sort of endgame. I have 2 pieces, queen and bishop versus queen, still have a pawn majority, completely winning, good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is that even if you recognize that you've blundered, don't resign immediately. When there are lots of pieces still on the board, you can often claw back to equality, especially at the beginner intermediate level where mistakes are really part of the game. The other thing is to look for and potentially make use of sacrifices in your calculations. If you never look for them, then you'll never find the occasional brilliant move. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.